Welcome back to the Aspire Hire Conversations podcast. I'm Chelsea Leon, owner of Aspire Hire Consumer Goods Recruiting. Today, I want to talk about one hiring tip that can save hiring leaders a lot of time, energy, and unnecessary stress. It's simple, it's memorable, and it's one of those ideas that sounds obvious once you hear it, but so many teams ignore it in real life. The rule is no twos. I'm certified in Lou Adler's performance-based hiring approach, and one of the reasons I value this methodology so much is because it gives hiring teams a more practical way to evaluate people. Not by chemistry, not by resume sparkle, not by whether someone seems sharp, but by whether they can actually do the work in your environment with your leader and with real intrinsic motivation to succeed. And the no twos rule is one of the cleanest ways to protect yourself from a hire that becomes stressful 6 weeks on the job because they just aren't aligned. Let's talk about why hiring gets stressful. Here's what I see happen at companies all the time before I get involved as a third-party recruiter. A team meets a candidate and likes them. They're polished, they interview well, they have some relevant experience. Maybe they're likable and charismatic. Maybe they came from a recognizable company. But there's one issue. Maybe their examples are vague. Maybe they've never really handled the size or the pace of this role. Maybe their motivation sounds lukewarm. Maybe the manager fit feels questionable. Maybe the environment that they came from is completely different from the one that they're walking into now. And instead of slowing down and taking that seriously, the team starts negotiating with itself. We can coach that. They'll probably figure it out. They're so impressive otherwise. They're close enough. We need to move fast. And that's where the stress starts. Not after the person is hired, before, because now you're no longer objectively evaluating the candidate. You're emotionally justifying them. What I appreciate about performance-based hiring is that it moves the conversation away from generic hiring language. Instead of asking, do they have 7 years of experience or do they check all the boxes? The better question is, what does this person actually need to accomplish in the role? What are the outcomes? What must they build, fix, improve, launch, stabilize, or lead in the first year? Then from there, the interview becomes much more grounded. You assess, have they done comparable work? How strong is their track record? Are they motivated to do this actual work? Can they succeed in this manager's style? Can they thrive in this environment? That is such a more useful conversation than just reviewing bullets on a resume. Now, let's talk about the actual rule. On the scorecard of 1 to 5, a 2 is basically telling you that there is a meaningful weakness here, not a tiny preference issue, a real weakness. Maybe it's adequate, maybe it's not terrible, maybe it's survivable, but it is not strong. And when that 2 shows up in a critical area, that matters because hiring mistakes usually do not come from the things that looked excellent. They come from the weaknesses everyone noticed and then talked themselves out of. That is why I love this rule. It forces clarity. If someone scores a 2 in job fit, motivation, managerial fit, culture fit, or a core competency that you truly need, you should not be moving forward as if that is a minor concern. That concern is the story. Real examples of where leaders ignore twos? Let me make this more practical. Here's a few examples. Example 1 is motivation. The candidate can do the work, but their answers tell you that this is not the kind of work that they really want to be doing. Maybe they want the title, maybe they want the money, maybe they want out of their current situation, but they are not energized by the actual mandate, the reality of your day-to-day job. That becomes a stressful hire. Example 2 is environment fit. Someone that has succeeded in a large, highly resourced company with layers of support, structure, and brand recognition. Now you want them to thrive in a scrappy founder-led business where they have to build while doing. That's not automatically a fit. And if that ranks low, do not ignore it. Example 3 is a managerial fit. The leader hiring them is fast, direct, hands-on. The candidate has only succeeded under highly collaborative, slower, consensus-driven leadership. This mismatch matters. Example 4 is comparable results. The resume might sound adjacent, but when you really dig into accomplishments in the conversation, they have not actually done the version of the job that you need now. It's too far of a stretch. And that's another place that teams get overly hopeful. Here's the deeper issue. It's the emotional trap. A lot of teams do not want to restart the search. They do not want to disappoint stakeholders. They do not want to admit that the shortlist is weak. They do not want to lose momentum. So they lower the bar emotionally while pretending that they're keeping the bar high. And that is exactly how stressful hires get made. The no twos rule is helpful because it interrupts that pattern. It says, stop, be honest. If this candidate has a real weakness in a critical area, don't dress it up as an upside. Here's the better path. Before interviews begin, define what success actually looks like in the role, not just responsibilities, actual outcomes. Then use a scorecard to evaluate the person against those factors. Skills, comparable accomplishments, growth trends, problem solving, team ability, management ability, job fit, managerial fit, culture and environment fit, and motivation. And then be disciplined. If a 2 shows up in a critical area, take it seriously, not emotionally, operationally, because you're not hiring a resume. You're hiring future execution. So that's the hiring tip. No 2s. If you want a hiring process that feels calmer, clearer, and less chaotic, this rule is a great place to start because the goal is not to talk yourself into a hire. The goal is to de-risk the hire before the offer ever goes out. If this episode was helpful, share it with a hiring leader on your team. And if you want the scorecard that I use, reach out and I'm happy to send it over. I'm Chelsea Leon with Aspire Hire. See you next time.